Okay, we're currently witnessing a fascinating geopolitical shift unfolding right up in the Himalayas. It's a high-stakes game of diplomacy, and it is actively reshaping the balance of power in South Asia as we speak.
For decades, Nepal had one special relationship. Its bond with its southern neighbor, India, was defined by an open border, a shared cultural history, and deep economic integration.
But today, it is trying to treat India, China, and the United States as equals. It's a bold departure from the historical status quo, and honestly, it's sending ripples through capital cities all around the world. So let's look at this historic policy shift.
The new leadership in Kathmandu is executing a strategy they officially call Nepal First Pragmatism. The core philosophy here is maintaining equal distance and equal proximity to all global powers. Basically, they're asserting their sovereignty by refusing to just default to those traditional alliances we're so used to seeing.
And you know, the departure from tradition was immediate. Historically, whenever a new Nepali prime minister took office, their very first meetings were exclusively with Indian diplomats. But instead, the new leadership hosted a joint meeting with 17 ambassadors simultaneously. By putting representatives from the US, China, Pakistan, and India in the exact same room at the exact same time, Kathmandu sent a very clear message: the era of exclusive privilege is over.
Moving on to Section 2, shifting from a buffer to a bridge.
This calculated move really signals a complete reimagining of the nation's place on the world map. Instead of its old identity as a geographical buffer state, a mere mountainous shield separating Asian giants, Nepal now actively wants to be a bridge. Their strategy is to capitalize on the massive economic growth and infrastructure initiatives of both its giant neighbors at the exact same time.
But of course, that brings us to the great power game.
Because stepping onto the global stage like this inherently invites intense, competing demands. The overlapping pressures from the US and China are putting immense weight on Kathmandu. On one hand, the United States is offering foreign direct investment, trade, and digital upgrades like Starlink, along with proposals for military cooperation. But right across the table, China is pushing its Belt and Road Initiative, while simultaneously issuing strict warnings against using that same US Starlink technology and establishing a hard red line against any official recognition of Tibetan refugees.
So, as you can imagine, the reality of this balancing act is fraught with risk. With continuous, rapid-fire visits from top officials on both sides, Nepal is quickly learning that accepting infrastructure from one power often crosses a strict red line for the other. Pleasing one superpower inevitably risks alienating the next.
Which leads us to India's calibrated response to all of this.
In response to feeling sidelined, New Delhi is playing a very quiet, highly calculated game. Crucially, India isn't loudly confronting Nepal or creating a public diplomatic incident. Instead, they're sending firm, unavoidable signals through strict regulatory enforcement. They've restricted fuel for Nepali vehicles crossing the border to a mere 50 to 100 rupees, which is barely enough to move. They've also mandated sudden 14-day lab testing for Nepal's massive tea exports, and they've noticeably delayed top-level bilateral meetings. It's a precise demonstration of leverage without uttering a single hostile word. But Nepal is signaling right back. Kathmandu is now strictly enforcing customs duties on everyday goods over 100 rupees coming in from India. This has caused traditional cross-border bazaar traffic to completely plummet. It's a deliberate, calculated move to prioritize local economic sovereignty over the old traditions of a frictionless, open border.
However, we have to look at the geographic and economic reality of the region.
Diplomatic ambitions are powerful for sure, but they eventually collide with hard geographical constraints. Nepal shares a 1,400-kilometer border with China. Now, on paper, that sounds like a massive opportunity, but in reality, it's defined by the treacherous, highly inaccessible frozen terrain of the Himalayas. So while promises of northern infrastructure sound grand, the daily reality of practical trade across that border is incredibly difficult.
Conversely, because of its flat, accessible, and historically open southern border, Nepal remains almost entirely dependent on India for its day-to-day survival. Just to put that into perspective, it relies on India for literally 100% of its petroleum supply. Add to that the massive influx of critical remittances from Nepali citizens working in India, and the economic reality becomes very, very clear.
The strategic takeaway here is that mutual dependency and shared ground realities just cannot be replaced by distant superpowers, no matter how much investment they might promise. And this stark reality check is exactly what India is quietly waiting for Kathmandu to acknowledge.
Bringing us to our final section, surviving between global giants.
Understanding this dynamic really requires a philosophical shift in how we view geopolitics. Small countries don't choose sides, they manage pressure. The illusion is that Nepal must pick India, China, or the US. But the truth is, it's attempting to absorb the immense gravitational pull of all three without being pulled apart.
As the global order fractures and reorganizes itself, Nepal is not choosing between powers. It is trying to survive between them. It's a delicate tightrope walk that could truly define the future of the region. Keep observing the world closely, and I'll see you in the next explainer.